Cool. I think we can get going, Julia. So why don't
Yes.
you why don't you kick things off and introduce yourself, Julia, and
Sounds good.
make sure you
And then
include the
you.
AWS part as well. That you're doing some good stuff with
Yeah,
AWS.
so hey everyone, welcome to this webinar. My name is Julia and I'm a global technologist at Veeam. I'm also a CNCF ambassador. I'm an AWS container hero. And like I said, passionate about cloud, so very involved in cloud communities. Michael, do you want to present yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Michael Cade. I'm a field CTO. I'm in the same team as Julia. I've been at Veeam for I just ticked over the 10-year mark. So I've got a slide that I'm going to share from when I first started and how the focus, not necessarily the focus has changed, but the platform has grown and it's now much broader. And I think probably the same as everyone on the call is that you're not just looking after some compute and some storage and networking in your data center, you're probably looking after multiple platforms in the public cloud, be it SaaS, be it PaaS, be it virtual machines, all over the place. So that's what I'm excited to get into. Um, and really, what me and Julia want to get across today in the next 30, 40 minutes is really to raise awareness of what we're doing in the public cloud from a Veeam perspective. And what I mean by that is when we look at the public cloud and notably the three big hyperscalers, the AWS, the Microsoft Azure, and the Google Cloud, is there's so much more than just virtual machines there. But let's get into it. And I want to make sure that you hopefully you walk away knowing that we do a lot more than maybe you've heard when it comes to the public cloud. So with that, let's
Yeah.
jump into the Veeam data platform. And and this takes me back to 10 years when I joined Veeam, in that we were just focused and very focused on virtual machine backup, and namely over two platforms, VMware vSphere and Microsoft Hyper-V. And you can see here that we were focused on the application, be it Active Directory, email, be it Exchange, the different databases that we saw back then, generic applications, web, file, print, etc. But those virtual machines, and making sure that we protected them in the most efficient way possible. And for those, if there are anyone on the call that's been a Veeam customer or have known Veeam for that amount of time, you know that we started or we changed the way we protected those virtual machines, in that we went directly into the vSphere API or into the Hyper-V API, and we went with an agentless approach to being able to protect those workloads. Whereas our competition at the time were all still deploying agents across all of the different VMs, which was adding more complexity, more management, more overhead, and that's where we were. And then over that 10 years, we've actually developed a platform, our own platform, if you will. So yes, virtualization is still very much out there. I've been calling it the hypervisor Hunger Games with what's going on around certain vendors that are still very good friend of ours as well. But ultimately, how do we protect all of these other platforms that you will have out there, be it cloud, be it physical machines, be it enterprise applications or SaaS-based workloads? And that ranges from being on-prem within that data center, being in the cloud, but equally the as a service model as well. And how do we do that in the most efficient way possible using native APIs, making sure that we're doing that same agentless approach that we did back in the day with VMware vSphere. I actually did a session yesterday where it was called virtualization was just the start for Veeam, and I think it's quite fitting that we're now talking about a much bigger,
Yeah.
wider net that we're able to talk about.
Yeah, I just if you with this slide, I think what's crucial here is to understand that Veeam has evolved from that traditional VM backup and recovery and has added different workloads. And also, it doesn't do just backup and recovery. Now it also includes recovery orchestration, sophisticated monitoring, and analytics. So our VDP Veeam data platform helps you with all of that, and it protects all your workloads independently of where they are. So if they are in the cloud, still virtual or physical, as you can see here on the slide. So we expanded to protect and support a range of environments, and also M365, Salesforce, Kasten, we're going to touch a little bit on that. So all to help with modernization, because companies are going on that way.
Yeah, absolutely, Julia. I think this slide is quite powerful when I'm speaking to customers, prospects, etc. And because they think that we're just the VM backup company, right? We just back up
Mhm.
stuff in VMware. But actually, more and more customers that I'm speaking to are running different sorts of databases, both relational SQL in Postgres, still Microsoft SQL, Oracle, as well as NoSQL with Mongo, and then you get into the cloud, and we're gonna get into that as we go on as well.
Yeah.
Julia,
And
do you want
yeah, sure. Uh-huh. So these are our strong points. So our architecture is designed to provide significant advantage and value to our customers. So we enable rapid and granular recovery, whether you need to restore entire servers or specific databases, specific files. You can be very granular and then recover them with speed and efficiency. We're also vendor agnostic, so platform agnostic. So it means you have the flexibility to recover your data to any location, whether it's on premises or in the cloud, from one cloud to another. So if you are if you are hybrid or multi-cloud, this is really going to help you because you can manage everything from one single platform, one single console. And even if your SaaS applications that Michael mentioned. And I think the next slide, we're gonna talk a little bit more about our portable data format. Yes. So this portability is incredibly important for organizations that want to avoid vendor lock-in, which I think all organizations do, and if they want to maintain the control of their data. So we have these special data format that we save everything, which is called the VBK, and it gives you that portability. So if you have your backups on-prem, your virtual backups from your virtual machines, and you want to send them somewhere else, you can do that very easily with our Veeam data platform. And it can align with your business needs and compliance requirements, because you're not tied to one vendor, and you're not, if you need to move to another region. Exactly. Do you want to add to that, Michael, to this slide?
Yeah, and I think the important thing is one thing about the mobility and being able to recover that workload from any image-based backup that we take, and some are missing off here. If we start putting things like Proxmox and Oracle Linux, that left-hand side of the slide and right-hand side gets quite busy. But ultimately, any image-based backup that we take with Veeam, be it physical or virtual, or even cloud-based virtual machines, they get that we use this same file format. And the best way I describe this is like a .zip file. I can create a .zip file on a Windows machine, and if I could go back in time, I could get that zip file on a Windows 95, Windows 98 system, and I could give that to Julia on a Mac, and she would be able to open that and still be able to get the files and the folders out of that. And that's very much the same as that file format. Now that is encrypted, it's compressed, it's got everything that you need in there. It's indexed, it's got its metadata alongside that. It can be stored in many different locations, object storage, hardened Linux repositories, SMB, NFS. It could be stored on dedupe device, anywhere you like. Then the key part to that is recover anywhere. So when bad things are happening, we can recover. But equally, see it as a way in which you can test the water out as to what does my workload or what does my application stack look like in that secondary location. Maybe I've got a group of VMs that I'd like to see what they'd look like in Amazon EC2, because I haven't made the choice yet as to whether that's where I want to go. But this is a great way about being able to see how that works. The other thing to mention here is maybe it's test and dev. Maybe I just want to spin up an environment in one of the public clouds and take advantage of that as a clone copy of my production workload.
Yeah, so also we prioritize resilience a lot. In the last slide, it was saying immutability and encryption. We also do that. Yes, thank you. We do that. So we provide critical data protection features like immutability and encryption, which are very important nowadays, especially with so many attacks. They are becoming each day more sophisticated. But we really prioritize resilience. So administrators, they can implement fine-grained access control in their accounts. So for example, there are some administrators that they need access to everything. If you want to move to the next slide, Michael, and
There's
they
a,
have access. Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
there's a question just come in, Julia, that it's worth touching on. So Ernesto asked, but there's still VM conversion required to spin up in another location. Absolutely, to those direct restores that you see there for Microsoft Azure, Azure Local, AWS, and Google, but actually not for the instant recovery. So instant recovery, we're actually just presenting that VBK file as a data store to that platform, that hypervisor, and we will in on the fly be able to present that virtual machine. But you're right, there is a conversion. So the laws of physics means that we do have to convert a file. Like we're not, and when you go through the wizard to convert one of these machines, you define what your EC2 instance needs to look like, for example. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, but you can have that set up um, to be able to do that. There was another question actually, Julia, and I'll answer it because there was there's a question about Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Now, there's a lot of infrastructures, hypervisors, and cloud infrastructure that is not mentioned on here, um, but we do have those agents. Now, I'm not saying that's the best approach, but we need to know that requirement so that we can feed that back into R&D and get that on the roadmap for that. But I how could I get a VMware vSphere VM from VMware into Oracle Linux? We could do that via a Linux agent as well into Oracle. So
And it's
we
not on
could
the
do it that
slide. Yeah, we also have Proxmox, so you
way.
can send it to Proxmox or any others that are on the slide. But yeah, this is the this mobility, and we give you the freedom of choice to move your workloads wherever you want.
Yeah, exactly
Yeah.
that. Cool. That's all the questions, Julia. So I'll go on.
Yeah, I just saw the questions. So yeah, there are more questions coming up. We can answer them as they
Yeah,
come, but I'll continue a little bit. So I was talking about resilience and how we implement that and give administrators the flexibility to have fine-grained access control. So we have different interfaces to protect. You know, we want to protect AWS. We want to protect our Azure workloads, and then some people, they need control of everything, so they need the visibility for that, and they have access to VBR and they can see everything. But let's say that the cloud team doesn't need to see what we are protecting on prem, and they don't need to have that capability of doing the backup and restore of our on-prem applications. So you can just give them the ability to access Veeam Backup for AWS. So you can access the UI or the API. And so you can see we have the Veeam Backup and replication icon on top. And then at the bottom, we have Veeam Backup for AWS, and same for Veeam Backup for Azure and Veeam Backup for Google Cloud. So you give access to just that. So through the UI or API, and same with custom. So if you have someone in the infrastructure team that needs access, you just give access to that as well. And it ensures that only authorized people have access to this sensitive data and critical backup and recovery functions.
yeah, exactly that. Nailed it, Julia, on that front. Um, so again, back to the premise of the show of the webinar is really to enable you all to walk away with an understanding of that we're doing a lot more when it comes to the public cloud and public cloud services. Just before I do that, Ernesto asked about Citrix Hypervisor and Zen Server. you'd be amazed how many hypervisors and requests for hypervisors have come out over the last maybe 12 to 18 months. Maybe you wouldn't be surprised, but the amount of how many there are. And we're evaluating which ones to bring support, native support to. Um, this is a great way to be able to like give us that feedback. And if you think of them after the fact or they pop up after, then speaking to your like your team would be a good way of getting that information into Veeam. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I've just
So here Veeam has made a significant investment to provide a robust cloud data management and protection capabilities. So here for AWS, you can see we have a comprehensive support for AWS workloads. So from EC2, EFS, a big one that I'll try to show a demo is protecting your Amazon VPCs. Also, we're always adding new workloads. Now we also have we protect Amazon RDS, DynamoDB, also protecting S3, EKS. If you're running Kubernetes workloads, we have Redshift, FSx, and ROSA as well. We are protecting.
yeah. So this is there's such a small slide, but so much to unpack in here, right? As Julia mentioned, so one of the key areas and key differentiators that we bring is the ability to protect VPC without stealing Julia's thunder on that demo. But it's one thing to protect the configuration of your network in the cloud, which is generally a lot of the time the thing that goes wrong. But equally, being able to have a comparison of that against your production and from your backup, and being able to see exactly what's changed since that last good backup. Equally, file systems, file servers, people have moved that NAS device into AWS. They're leveraging EFS, they're leveraging FSX. So FSX underneath that is a pyramid of services around Lustre, around NFS, around NetApp have their ONTAP service in there, and the ability for us to protect that also. Then equally from a compute point of view, it's very easy for us to talk about virtual machine backup, but then we can go one step further when it comes to things like EKS, so Kubernetes, for example, and we'll get into that slightly towards the end of the session. But Kubernetes being a platform based on compute, storage, and networking, it's just another platform. Now it's available in the cloud, etc. So being able to use our Veeam custom product there to be able to protect data within that cluster. Then the next thing, and we're seeing a rise in requirements around databases as PaaS-based services in the public cloud. So Amazon RDS, this is where you're going to find Postgres, this is where you're going to find Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, etc. You're also going to find DynamoDB, which is a more a database, NoSQL database, more akin to like serverless compute functions. So being able to protect them in a more native way is key, and then you get into big data and data warehousing in regards to Redshift and Redshift serverless is a new feature that's coming with the product that you should see hopefully in the not too distant future from Veeam. I don't want to give away when that lands, but yeah,
Soon,
quite a
soon.
expansive look of what we cover in AWS for that. And if there's services on AWS, I'd love to hear like that in the questions to see if there's something that I can answer from that. The one that I did miss off here, Julia, was around S3. So from a backup perspective, S3 object storage was really the first iteration of S3 was really people using that as a backup target. How can we store our backups in an S3 bucket using and leveraging that immutability that Julia mentioned before? But equally, we're starting to see more and more people use that as your production NAS type environment for your unstructured data. I mean, if you go to any of the Veeam documentation, all of that lives on S3 storage. So that then becomes quite important, and we need to protect that as well. We have the ability to protect that in the same way that we protect our NAS on-prem, if you will. I
Yeah.
think I don't know. Do you want to cover this, Julia, or I can cover
Sure.
this?
Yeah, we can do it together.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, just security is at the forefront of everything that we do. And here, this concept is about separation of concern. So we always say that you need to have your backup account, your backup server in a different account from where your production workloads are, because if something happens, you don't have that single point of failure. You can recover your workloads to another account. But if the attackers, they get access to your production account and your backup is in there, then it will be much harder to recover everything. And so you can see here in the diagram that we really employ this segregated account approach for all our public cloud offerings, so including AWS, and Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud, to enhance the security and minimize risks. So you only have a few, we have a lot more workloads, like we saw it on the previous slide, but here just a few on the left. And then we can do snapshots from those, and we send to another account through some workers, which are just EC2 instances that we spin up for that for the job, for the backup job. And we send them to a backup repository, which can be Amazon S3. You can make them immutable and encrypt them, for added security. And you can also send to Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive if you want to save more on costs. And so this is the beauty. We are very flexible depending on what you want to do.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add there, like, awesome job, Julia. But yeah, and so we're first of all leveraging those snapshots for really fast recovery, and the durability of snapshots in the cloud are not necessarily tied to your Amazon EC2 instance. So we can do a lot of good stuff with that snapshot at that point. So when you delete an EC2 instance, you're not deleting the snapshots that go along with that, by the way. So if you've got EC2 instances and you delete the EC2 instance, the snapshots are still going to be there and costing you money. But that equally gives us the ability to move that snapshot around so that you've got copies of that data elsewhere. It's also what we use as the source to get that into that object storage. The worker that Julia mentioned, that's a small Ubuntu box that gets spun up in that production account or in the backup account, that then leans in, lifts and shifts that data. If you're familiar with Veeam on-prem, it's probably more akin to a proxy, and that's lifting and shifting that data. Those workers only come up when they're doing some work. They're not on all the time. Compute costs money in the cloud, so we're trying to save you as um, much compute cost as we can. Veeam backup for AWS that you see pictured there, and you can change that for Azure, and you can change that for Google. That is a Linux appliance that is built into an EC2 instance that is deployed through VBR into your backup account. Now, the important thing to note here: this is a best practice guide. Um, it's also very easy out of the box to deploy your your Veeam backup for AWS appliance into that production account. So you've got to make the choice to put that into the relevant location, the correct backup account, as well. So, Julia, I don't know how this demo is going to
let's
work, but
let's see if it's gonna work. Yeah. So as we mentioned, we protect VPCs, VPC network settings and configurations. And one of our differentials is that we also enable you to identify changes and compare them. So we're gonna, yeah, you can click and
yeah,
let's see if it works. So here, basically, we're going to delete network ACL and a security group to show you how it looks on the Vim backup and AWS dashboard. And then we're going not try we'll restore them. But as you can see, you delete them, and a lot of times AWS, it's hard for you to get them back if any accidental deletions or someone does that on purpose. Now we are here on Vim backup for AWS on the dashboard. We go to VPC. we're just going to run the policy again, and this policy is already there. We didn't create it. You can run it, or you can stop it. But yeah, so, and it's very fast. As you can see, we go to the protected data and it shows us what was changed. So it already shows us that the network ACL was deleted. And if I scroll down, I'll see that the security group was also deleted. And now, if I want to restore them, you just select the point that you want. So you can restore the entire VPC or some selected items. And now you selected the restore point. So usually you can select the latest one and apply. And now you're going to, these are all the network settings and configurations that you can restore. We're going to select the security group that we had deleted and the network ACL. So yes, that there it is, and the network ACL, because they are on they were backed up previously. And then just click next. You need the permissions to restore them. So this IAM role has the necessary permissions. You can also check the permissions, and you can assign the permissions and temporary keys if it's just a one-off thing, and just give it a reason. Let's say it was an accidental deletion. Next, and finish. And that's it, very easy. You just follow the wizard. And now if we go back to our console, let's refresh. Yeah, it's there, and the network ACL is back there as well. Yeah, so the demo worked.
Good stuff. Yeah, and I think the power of this comparison is quite important. Like, so if you think about VPC as your network configuration in the cloud, and that's why it's super quick, because it's just made up a configuration. But equally, you saw how easy it was that Julia deleted elements of that VPC, or that might have been, instead of deletion, it might have been that Julia, normally it's me actually, makes a change and breaks everything. But maybe I make a change and I make another change and another change, and I don't actually know which one actually broke the situation. I don't know what broke the application. So with this, I can now do a comparison between production and backup, and I can restore that. The other thing that we've brought into, you also noticed through there, another thing that we went over, like it's a quick demo, but is the integration into IAM, so identity and access management, and we can take this same use case into Azure as well. So being able to leverage identity and access management and being able to define who has rights to do what they need to do in terms of restore means that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Equally, in the next version of Veeam Backup for AWS, we're integrating into AWS organizations. So another level of being able to define roles and responsibilities into your backup infrastructure. So awesome demo. That backup, that comparison is super powerful, I think. And you're starting to see that comparison is becoming more and more important when it comes to data recovery, and it's why we've implemented that. I don't think we get on to Entra ID too much, Julia, but that's another big differentiator that we have in the ability to back up Microsoft Entra ID, is the ability to compare what we have in our backups to what we have in production. So if we think about Active Directory and push that into Entra ID, we've got the ability to compare that.
And see if there are any changes. Exactly. Yeah. Now Microsoft Azure, you can see the workloads that we protect. We protect similar to AWS, so we protect VMs, we protect databases, also Azure virtual network configuration, Azure File Shares, Azure Blob Storage, AKS. So like we do similar to all the platforms. I would say AWS and Azure are the ones that we have the most workload protection, and we're always adding new ones. So we also have protection for Cosmos DB, Azure Data Lake, Enter ID, which is a new one, and so used to be called Active Directory, and Microsoft 365. And a curious thing is that everyone that is using M365, they have an Enter ID tenant. So, and even if you're using Azure, or even if you're using AWS, you might have an Enter ID tenant that you need to create, so you can sign in easily on these other platforms. And that's why it's so important to back up Enter ID. I think it was a great new addition that we have done, and we're always improving with each release, and Enter ID has a great things coming up as well.
Yeah, and I think at this point, like it's important to note, like this is all in the Veeam data platform. So this is where you as a customer, Veeam customer, will download the software. You'll install the software wherever that needs to be, agnostic to wherever it can be. Like, it can be a virtual machine, can be physical, can be a cloud-based instance, and it's all in that same console for that. The other interesting bit, and like Cosmos DB, again, that's where you're going to get variants of Postgres and MongoDB. Say for SQL databases, there's lots of different SQL databases that you can get within Microsoft Azure. The one thing that I've seen recently is the ability to use those Azure SQL databases or Cosmos DB databases and Cosmos databases to actually host vector databases from an AI perspective. So if you think about AI, and it wouldn't be a session without talking about AI in 2025, but ultimately we do have some stuff around Veeam Intelligence. I'm not going to get into that too much, and that's about assisting you on your backup journey so that you don't have to do the manual steps yourself. But equally, think about how we protect that AI pipeline or that AI infrastructure. And a lot of the Microsoft Azure SQL databases are being used for that, i.e., Postgres, for example. Postgres has an extension called PG Vector, and PG Vector turns that database that we all know, or NoSQL, into a vector database. So your embeddings get pushed into that vector database, and then almost open up the top of your LLM, your model, and that could be OpenAI, but it could be a Llama, and it basically just hovers the RAG database on top, the vector database, and now allows you to interact with your data via a model to get some real insight data back. And if you've spent a lot of compute power or GPU power on like creating that vector or that embedding, then that SQL database becomes just as mission critical as your order system. So to protect it, obviously, is massively important. The other key part there is, again, we're going to leverage those snapshots and we're going to push them off to blob storage. You can equally bring them out of Azure and push them into a different storage type on prem if you wish. I have to remember what this demo is. I think I
Yeah.
created this one. Um,
So this demo is basically showing, yeah, you can press play. Yeah. So we're going to show how to create an Azure SQL database backup policy. It's already created, but we're going to just edit it and show step by step how it works. And the goal is for you to see how easy it is, and just following the wizard. You have to choose which service account you want to, you have to specify the service account, and then you have options for the processing. So you have to choose your credentials, and you can add new ones as well, and it will send you to another wizard. Once you add them, it will come back to this wizard. So you can also use staging servers. Here you pick your schedule, your backup schedule, so you can do very granularly, depending you only want on the weekend or weekdays, and which repository you're going to send it to. Here are some settings. Cost estimation is a great tool that gives you an overview of how much this backup job is going to cost you per month, and great for FinOps purposes. And here you're choosing, it's the first step actually, but you're choosing which workloads you're protecting. So you can protect all the resources that are there, or you can protect specific ones by name or tag. So we're adding we've added the database, the server, and you can just click apply. But basically, you follow one after the other and just click here. You can test the configurations to see if you have all the permissions to create that backup job, and to see if it's going to work. And if it doesn't, then you can edit your permissions, and usually click finish, and you will start the backup job for you. Now, since we already created that backup job, we'll go to our protected data, and under databases, we'll select what we want to restore. So you just click restore the database, and here you select which one you want to restore. And then we have to select the account, the service account, where it is. So again, you can add one there, and it will take, if you add there, you will take us back to the wizard. The restore mode, so you can restore it to the original location or to a new location with different settings. And again, we give you the ability to change what was done, and you can change the region, you can change the server, you can change the account that it's in. Just click apply, and then next, give it a reason. Here, following will be yes, okay. And usually you would go click next, give it a reason, and then just apply, and it would work out very easily for you. And that's the beauty of our Vim backup for cloud products.
So I think to add, awesome, Julia, because I created that demo, so I was the one going all over the place. So well done for keeping up with my brain. But I think it's also important. Like, it's great that you've got a UI um, to be able to access that. If you're a UI person and you want to interact with the system that way, equally though, both Azure, Google, and AWS all have an API, so you can interact with it via the API if need be. There's also a Swagger endpoint to get you all of the makeup of that API, that of the APIs that are available as well. So as much as we show the nice, pretty UI, there is an API that can be used as well. And I'd be interested in the chat if there's anyone looking for an API approach when it comes to cloud protection as
And
well.
also, if I may mention, you can deploy Vim backup for AWS, Azure with Terraform. So if you're using infrastructure as code, we have a GitHub with the steps that everything is very well documented. And at least we are very involved, in the DevOps space, and we've seen the need of using Terraform for that. So you can also deploy them using Terraform.
That that actually extends not just to the deployment but also the policy creation, so being able to
Mhm.
create policies using infrastructure as code. So you create that via infrastructure as code, and store that in your own Git.
Yeah.
um, Google, Julia, do you want me to take it, or?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So a very similar stream. My biggest question is, clearly there's not enough icons on this slide, and this comes down to customer feedback and customer requirements. So I'd like to know, whoever's watching this, like, comment and let us know, what are we missing. Um, I'm not gonna mention the ones that I hear, but I'd be interested to hear your stories and your requirements. So obviously there's the virtual machines in the compute engine. There's also the Cloud SQL and the Cloud Spanner. They're the databases that we find um, within Google Cloud. Then you've got your Google Cloud Storage as well as the GKE aspect of it. Um, there are a lot of big data services within Google that might be interested to be backed up as well. But I'm not gonna. I don't want to jade the responses. So then, just a name drop another area. So within the cloud strategy within Veeam, we've got the three public cloud, the big three hyperscalers. I'm not saying that that's an exhaustive list. There's already been mentions of Oracle Cloud Infrastructure as well, but also on top of that is Kubernetes, and Kubernetes can be run anywhere, could be on prem, could be in the public cloud. You saw us mention many of those different variants. But when it comes to Kubernetes, there's many different distributions. OpenShift from Red Hat is widely seen out there from an enterprise perspective. But then the cloud-based ones, the GKE, the EKS, the AKS, also being seen. Then you've got the underpinning storage infrastructure, security services are plenty, and then applications or data services on top. The one thing that we natively protect, and it's very similar story to what I mentioned about how we approach virtualization backup, what must be nearly 18 years ago now, is very similar to how Veeam Kasten actually approaches Kubernetes backup. So Kasten gets deployed within your Kubernetes cluster, and I don't think I've got the slide. No, but that unlocks the ability to then protect all of your data within that Kubernetes cluster. Equally, it can reach out and grab other associated data services to that data, i.e. it could be Amazon RDS. So there's a bit of a crossover there as well. But I think it's well worth mentioning like the breadth of what we do there from a Kubernetes data protection, being agnostic, being becoming part of the Kubernetes custom resource definition and aggregated APIs, being native rather than using an image-based backup to protect the Kubernetes nodes. We're actually inside speaking Kubernetes in there. And I'm just conscious of time on here as well. So I'm going to just quickly touch on where we are today from a Veeam perspective. So I've said a lot about this left-hand side of the slide, the software subscription, where and how you all could download Veeam software and you could start protecting all of those different workloads in the public cloud, the virtual, the physical, the enterprise applications. We also have the ability to protect M365, Salesforce, and Kubernetes, like I mentioned. Then equally, we have our important Veeam cloud service providers that offer Veeam as a service. And they sometimes put value add on top of that around their own MSP type architecture. Then we have our Veeam Data Cloud, and today that has the ability to take that Azure workload that you have, the virtual machines, the databases, the file services, and be able to protect those workloads as a service. So you go to our UI, our Veeam Data Cloud, and you put in what you need and then protect that. You're not having to run any of that workload in your own infrastructure. Also, M365 can be consumed that way, and then Vault is a way in which you can send your backups into a Veeam target. So kind of touching on that, yeah, so Microsoft 365, that includes Exchange or Outlook. It includes OneDrive, Teams, and SharePoint, and it gives you the same look and feel of being able to protect that you have on-prem, but without the added benefit of not having to update and look after that on-prem. From an Azure point of view, it's the ability to protect the VMs, the SQL, the files, like I mentioned. And then Veeam Data Vault is the ability to send your backups into a Veeam first tenant and be able to securely store that data. This vault is in two flavors. It's in ZRS and it's in LRS. ZRS is the more performance storage. So if you wanted to use that as a primary target, you could. If you wanted to use LRS, a bit slower, a bit cheaper, then you'd use LRS for that longer term backup copy type function. And that spans that Veeam Data Platform and the Veeam Data Cloud. I mentioned around Entra ID because this is coming relatively soon. So you've got Microsoft Entra ID protection within Veeam Data Platform today, and all of that comparison. We're backing up users, groups, and roles, as well as enterprise applications and app registrations. That same functionality is going to come to Veeam Data Cloud. So as a service, so BAS for SaaS is that terminology.
Also, we protect the logs as well, which is helpful for compliance. Yeah. So, and each time we're adding new capabilities, new protection of new things. So yeah, coming up soon for Entra ID, Microsoft Entra ID.
Yeah, and that is very, very soon. I can't give away too many dates on there, but very soon. So I got to this point. I know I've answered some of the questions. We've answered some of the questions already, but if there are any other questions, please pop them in. Mm-hmm. In general about Veeam, I'm happy to get into the weeds about some of the other Veeam data platform areas as well. But yeah, hopefully that was ultimately useful in terms of sharing like the awareness of what we do across the public cloud and as well as Kubernetes. Let us know if you'd like to hear more about any of the particular areas. It was a very like hopefully me and Julia put enough demos in there, but
Yeah.
sometimes we get feedback that you want more demos, and I think that'd be cool to get into. On demos though, I know that Julia's done a handful of demos around Veeam Backup for AWS
Yeah.
on the Veeam
Mhm.
YouTube. I think I know I've done some around Veeam Backup for Azure
Mhm.
that should be floating around somewhere on the YouTube as well. And it goes into like the steps in which to protect that. But so Julie, I don't see
Yeah,
any
I don't
questions
see any
coming
questions.
in.
Hmm.
Do you have
Yeah.
anything to add at all?
No, I just saw someone raising a hand. I don't know what that means, but no, nothing to add. And oh, here someone asked, do you have any best practices documentation and detailed step-by-step guide with regards to Vim Backup for Azure? Can you please provide me with links to videos and documentation?
Yeah, for sure. So, in fact, let me do it live. I'm going to try and find it. One would be the first place that I would push everyone to is the Help Center. So, helpcenter.veeam.com is going to be all the documentation that you need to be able to get to understanding everything that we're doing in our um, production environment. So,
Mhm.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
I'm gonna share this link.
I did it already.
Ah, you're too quick.
But the general one, and then people can choose if they want a Vim backup for Azure, Vim backup for AWS, whichever service or product they want to protect. Yeah, someone already shared as well.
Good
Someone
stuff.
asked,
Yeah.
have you planned to include Google Workspace backup integration?
Sorry, what the Google Workspace?
Yeah.
So I hear a lot of Google Workspace requests. Um, I would love to know. Like, I don't know if you're an existing Veeam customer, but that feedback just needs to go through
Mhm.
your sales team, your account team. Um, we have a feature request tracker that we're monitoring all the time. We just don't see enough ask for it. If you think about Google Workspaces, it doesn't necessarily um, cost as much as M365. So would you be even willing to pay for a backup solution? I'm guessing if you're asking the question, then
Mm.
yes. But the feedback that we get is very much around public sector. So get the feedback in, and we'll absolutely look at it for sure.
We're getting more questions. There is one
Cool.
about SAP. So, what about SAP DB database as on-prem or SAP cloud?
Um, Yeah, great question. So SAP on-prem, we integrate into Backint. That's one of those enterprise applications that we have. SAP Cloud, I would have to look into what it actually looks like and what APIs are available to us. So I'm going to say yes to the data SAP on-prem. Um, Not 100% sure on the SAP Cloud element.
Any other
Was
questions?
great question though around
Yeah.
SAP. We're seeing that more and more.
Hmm. Yeah.
That same help center will get you to the enterprise application documentation as well. In fact, let me do this. Can I
Hmm.
reply to it?
You can.
So
Yeah.
I've just linked you to the SAP HANA plugin. So it uses Backint. So if you're a SAP DBA or you've got a SAP DBA, that likes to use the native tool to just dump that file somewhere. This is about giving you, as a backup admin or an IT manager, a CISO, whatever that role is that you're in, gives you visibility and control on where they store that dump, is ultimately what we've done there. Cool, Julia. I think we're
Yeah.
good to wrap things up. You can find us. There was one more.
I think HANA plugin also on Veeam. Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
I'm not,
yeah, go
yeah, I'm
ahead.
not going to get into a roadmap around what's coming on VDC, but you're on the right line as to where we're potentially going. Um, so yeah, maybe there's another webinar in that. Yeah, so just to close things out, you can find us both, and hopefully that was useful. And yeah, anything to add, Julia, before we close out?
No, just keep an eye out because we are, always adding more things and nothing more. Yeah.
Um, how is VDC licensing for Entra? It's on a per user basis. But again, the best thing to do is take a look at the Veeam Data Cloud. If you Google Veeam Data Cloud, it will come up with the details.
With information. Yeah.
Let me do this as well. But yeah, with that, thanks very much for sticking around.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
it was useful, and yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.